people grapple to reach the coffins. This is a funeral, but with calls for revenge. Members of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, a militant group in Gaza, were killed this weekend. We know one of them is Khalid Mansour, a senior commander. The man on the right heaves what's left. The first floor hovers where it shouldn't be. The disorder of this conflict is both measurable and utterly incalculable. These people in Gaza City have lost their homes to Israeli airstrikes.
They target the people. They target helpless people who are safe in their homes. They target people and old people. They don't have any mercy. Who can we complain to?
They're asking similar questions in Rafah, where Khalid Mansour was killed. His sons see him for the last time in a morgue. Rockets fired from Gaza City, intercepted in southern Israel by the country's defense systems. The fighting began on Friday when another senior commander of the PIJ was killed during a wave of airstrikes. Hamas are in charge of the Gaza Strip, but it's claimed they're not involved in this conflict.
600 rockets were fired indiscriminately by Islamic Jihad towards Israeli civilians, both in these southern communities and all throughout Israel. Since then, the Israeli Defense Forces have been targeting not the people of Gaza, but rather Islamic Jihad terrorists.
And who is responsible for the death of this child? And 3 more in the Jabalia refugee camp in Gaza. The Israeli government blame Islamic Jihad terrorists, a rocket meant to hit Israel that fell short, they say. Both sides blaming the other, whilst grief cracks this community. At one point this afternoon, there was hope of a ceasefire by this evening. But the truce talks continue, and the shelling does too.
Well, in a moment, we'll hear from the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. But I've also been speaking to Gaza-based journalist Hin Khudari. I asked her to clarify if the reports of a ceasefire were indeed accurate.
We have been hoping in the past couple of hours that there's going to be a ceasefire agreement, but the Islamic Jihad announced right now that there's nothing clear, and they didn't officially confirm that there's going to be a ceasefire held. And they believe that like the blood of the Palestinian citizens haven't been dried yet, so they feel that they need more time, and like they can't talk about this right now.
So they need more time, and presumably also they're going to fire more rockets into Israel tonight.
Well, actually, like we can still hear explosions, and we can also still hear airstrikes from the Israeli side. And at the same time, the Islamic Jihad believes that they have the right to retaliate because, as you see, there's another explosion heard in the background. Because last night, another top commander of the Islamic Jihad was assassinated and was pulled from under the rebels.
And why do you think Hamas, which is running the Gaza Strip, is not getting involved this time?
Who said they're not getting involved? There's a joint room. It's called a joint operation room for all the Palestinian factions and resistant factions. And all of the announcements have been going out of this room. You're saying that Hamas is not on the sidelines. They are actually involved in this as well? I mean, they're politically involved in this? Actually, I interviewed Fawzi Barhoum, one of the Hamas spokespersons, yesterday, and he said that they're all together and they're all one hand. And they announced and made a couple of statements that they're on the side of all the Palestinian factions and resistance factions. Where do you think this current escalation, this current fighting will end? I believe that this won't ever end. because at the end of the day, there are Palestinians that believe that they're defending their land. When Ukraine was targeted, and they said that Ukraine is defending their land. Now Israel, when they're firing and attacking Palestinians, they said that they have the right to defend their land. And what about Palestinians?
You feel forgotten.
We are forgotten. People in Gaza are very depressed. I'm being very honest. They're feeling that they're forgotten, they're alone. A lot of mixed feelings, but at the same time, we're sure that this is going to end like in the upcoming week, hopefully.
Hind Khoudary, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, also under rocket fire, this time in Israel, is the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Fleur Hassan Nahum. I spoke to her earlier and I asked her to clarify the latest developments on that proposed ceasefire.
At the moment, the information we have is that there should be a ceasefire coming into effect at 8 o'clock Israel time this evening. But of course, anything building up to a ceasefire is always when the large barrage of rockets continue up until the ceasefire. The problem with Islamic Jihad particularly is they're less disciplined and cohesive than Hamas. So even if there is a ceasefire, we don't know whether all their little separate groups will be honoring that ceasefire.
And you're in Jerusalem. Has Jerusalem actually been hit by any missiles from the Gaza Strip?
We had sirens, people in shelters. This happened last year. This is happening continuously. And people have to understand, we left Gaza in 2005. So it's not clear why we're still getting into Israel's sovereign territory.
Of course, Islamic Jihad is saying that the rockets are in response to the IDF killing, the Israeli army killing several Islamic Jihad commanders. This is the direct response.
What happened was that we had a very good intelligence that Islamic Jihad, which is funded and backed by Iran, were actually bringing mortar shells to the Gaza border in order to do something that hasn't been done from Gaza before, and that is hitting civilian populations with mortar shells. Of course, any sovereign country would not allow their citizens to be hurt and killed and slaughtered in that way. We tried by non-military means to get rid of that threat. We failed, and that's why we did a very surgical attack on the leaders who were planning and implementing those attacks.
But that surgical attack has killed, those attacks, I should say, have killed 31 people so far, many of them civilians, amongst them 6 children, according to authorities in Gaza. And I covered this war last year from both sides, and I have to say, every time there is a confrontation between the Gaza Strip and the IDF, it is the Palestinians who are dying in much, much, much larger numbers.
Well, the only reason that the Palestinians are dying in larger numbers is because the Islamic Jihad, as well as other terrorist organizations, send out their rockets from civilian populations. The only reason Israelis aren't dying in the thousands and thousands is because we have a technology called the Iron Dome that is intercepting 95% of the rockets.
You're firing rockets into civilian areas, into apartment blocks that collapse like pancakes, killing the people living inside them. I mean, that is just, frankly, that is unacceptable.
Yes, unfortunately, there have been some collateral damage, as there always is in war, but that is never our intention.
It doesn't feel as if Israel is always trying to sue for peace when you're inside the Gaza Strip.
Well, all I can tell you is that in the Gaza Strip, when children get sick, it's Israel that they come to with complete confidence that we're going to be saving their lives and sending them back.
Fleur Hassan Nahum, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.